Welcome back to the Summer of Marathons for the Sonic the Hedgehog edition, everybody. So we've covered 2 Sonic the Hedgehog games on the Sega Genesis, we took a quick detour for Sonic CD on the Sega CD, and now we're going to be taking a look at Sonic's big hurrah for his greatest 2D platforming action-adventure game in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic & Knuckles for the Sega Genesis.
Or to be more accurate on point, we're going to be taking a look at Sonic 3 and Knuckles for the Genesis the way the original game was supposed to be. Okay, let me back up a bit here. So Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was rocking the 2D platformers of the 90s, and Mr. Video Game had finally met his match. It was the day the console wars broke out into the streets. Kids fought over which video game mascot was the best, why the Super Nintendo had more iconic series than the Genesis, what Genesis did that Nintendo don't. Yes, that was a fucking tagline. Brilliant advertising, I dare say. But hey, like the old saying goes, you can't reach the top if there's no challenge to get in your way. And needless to say, the challenges of Sonic Team's most anticipated Sonic sequel would begin to pay off with the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 that released in North America in February of 1994, with an expansion, standalone sequel titled Sonic & Knuckles. Now the interesting concept to talk about with Sonic & Knuckles is the lock-on technology. You see, the cartridge had a hatch that you could open from the top, and if you inserted a second cartridge into it, namely Sonic 2 or Sonic 3, you could get Knuckles into Sonic 2, or a complete version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles to play. The difference between the standard and the complete versions of the game was that you could collect the first set of Chaos Emeralds in the Sonic 3 part of the game, but when you reached the and Knuckles part of the game, you could access a hidden giant ring room, which displayed a set of Super Emeralds which unlocked an even more powerful form for Sonic and Knuckles to transform into, should you want to go after them. But hey, I bet you're wondering why the game was even split to begin with. It's not like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic CD where the 2 concepts differed so much, it would make sense to split them into 2 separate games. These 2 games already follow 2 halves of the same story. Well, according to the development process from Sonic Team in the US, it was because of time constraints and the expensive manufacturing costs to use a cartridge with more memory would have been a big risk, so it made sense to split the 2 games. However, the lock-on technology idea was something that already existed prior to the development of the game, since Knuckles would have had the ability to be playable in Sonic 1, though sadly the feature was removed. The last bit of interesting trivia I think you guys might like to hear, although you might know about it already, is the King of Pop himself, Michael Jackson, was rumoured to have worked on the game, but was either left uncredited, intentionally or not, due to the 1993 sexual abuse allegations he was facing at the time. And while it might seem far-fetched for the King to contribute to the Blue Blur's legacy, a lot of people have examined a lot of the soundtrack and even made remixes to match that of his original songs, and some of the comparisons are pretty spot on. Anyways, so Sonic travelled to a microplanet and saved Yandere the Hedgehog, he's saved the inhabitants of South Island and West Island, the Death Egg has been destroyed. What else is there to look forward to in this next adventure? Well, believe it or not, the Death Egg was not fully destroyed when Sonic defeated the Death Egg robot. It instead crash-landed on the mystical floating island in the sky, known as Angel Island, which caused it to fall into the ocean. On the lone island lay the guardian of the mysterious Master Emerald, Knuckles the Echidna, a red-coloured marsupial with giant boxing gloves, a love for grapes, and the remaining sole survivor warrior of the fabled Knuckles clan. And after discovering that the Super Emeralds inside of the Emerald Altar have been stolen, Knuckles sets off to find Dr. Eggman beside the Death Egg, but he manages to convince the young Echidna that he has been studying the egg and that an evil blue hedgehog by the name of Sonic has been stealing the Chaos Emeralds from him and plans to wreak havoc. Meanwhile, Sonic and Tails discover that an Emerald energy reading has been discovered on this mysterious island, and so the duo set off to find out what it is, and if it happens to be another Chaos Emerald that the game developers have conveniently added without retconning the lore. Upon their arrival, Sonic, who transforms into his super state, lands on the island, but when he gets there, Knuckles knocks him out of his super state, steals the Chaos Emeralds from him, and runs off to hide them. Let me repeat that. Knuckles the Echidna, a lone warrior of the Knuckles clan, managed to punch Super Sonic out of his state, which is next to near impossible to do since the only way to get out of a super state is by running out of rings, yet Knuckles does it with barely any effort at all. That is one strong motherfucker.
Here I come, rougher than the rest of them.
Now the cool thing about this game is the way that the story is told without actually straight up telling you what's going on. There's no in-game scrolling text or voiceover telling what the story is about. Rather, the in-game cutscenes with characters interacting between each other, the subtle clues and hints that display bits and pieces of foreshadowing events, Sure, you could argue there is no story and this is just following the adventures of Sonic and Tails, discovering an island with a pissed off echidna as they try to save the world. But I like to think that woven in between this island and the little backdrops and bits of history floating around in certain zones, that the game is aiming to develop a deeper and more complex look that ranges outside of a blue hedgehog who runs super fast and eats chili dogs more times than he does stop Dr. Robotnik. But why are we talking story talk? This is a video game about going fast and having a grand old time, so let's get to analysing. So let it be said that TheJackedex orgasmed over the production values of thy game, for he doth give praise to thy graphical design for its broader, more detailed, more environmentally anime style of design. He doth touch upon thou aesthetic changes that broaden from mere simple backdrop items to more organically appealing set pieces and level design and structure. I mean, if you want to take a sample of what the games look like compared to how they look now, Sonic the Hedgehog's graphical design stems from a slick, colourful aesthetic choice, while Sonic 3 and Knuckles have a level of artwork and colour choice very similar to the likes of Naruto and Bleach. Granted, the designs on some of the characters and the enemies have a simple base design in terms of anatomy and shape, but the detail woven into the colour, shading and lighting itself helps illustrate a more mature, more complex look. When you travel through zones like the Hydro City Zone, Ice Cap Zone or the Mushroom Hill Zone, you feel like the world is a lot more three-dimensional with the way the backgrounds shift and fall in line with the character, and make every planet the one you're running on feel synchronized with the rest of the environment, which I think looks way cooler than the way Sonic 2 and Sonic CD to some extent did. In those games, I just always got the impression I was running on one plane, and the background was always stuck to make me feel a part of the world only 50% of the time. Here, I feel like I could actually run through these stages, and I know, that's very cheesy of me for someone like me to say, but hey, video games are a form of escapism after all, and if this game gives me that feeling of being in the world 100% of the time, that's how you do player engagement. Speaking of player engagement, a world with lots of zones to run through and secrets to find is once again brought back in full force here, and with a new installment, we have a new range of abilities to work with here. To start off with, Sonic, Tails, and now Knuckles all have the trademark Spin Dash, which you can use to build up your speed and dash past enemies, or giant rocks or boulders, to access secret areas or find various new power-ups. Sonic has his trademark speed, but now he has a new ability which can be used whenever the player hits the jump button once, and then once again while in the air, to perform an insta-shield. It's kind of like a second attack that you can use against your enemies and bosses to deliver a more earlier, deadlier attack whenever you use it at just the right time. Tails lacks the insta-shield, but in addition to his spin dash, by double jumping, Tails can now utilize his ability to fly to look for various upper pathways and secrets, but if you fly around for too long, he'll get tired and drop to the ground. He can also swim in underwater passages, which makes navigating through Hydro City Zone a complete hassle-free experience. If you manage to bring a second player into the game, Tails can utilize this ability where if he is flying and Sonic grabs onto him, you can transport the both of them into higher areas and nab secret goodies and powers to bulk up your experience. With Knuckles, he has the same abilities as Sonic with his iconic spin dash, but since he relies more on power than speed, Knuckles can effortlessly punch through seemingly unbreakable boulders and access alternative levels that Sonic and Tails otherwise couldn't. And just like Tails, you can also initiate Knuckles' signature abilities, gliding and climbing. Unlike Tails though, gliding only allows him to travel airborne in a left to right scenario. To ascend any place that might have treasure, you have the wall climbing ability, which, while slow, allows players to get to higher areas and receive their... well, you get the picture. Among the various power-ups you can find, we now have the new elemental shields which grant our characters new buffs to their offense and defense. The fire shield can protect Sonic from fiery-based hazards as well as lava, and by pressing the jump button twice, he can do a semi-homing attack. The lightning shield allows Sonic to do a double jump and protect him against various projectile-based attacks, but he can also nab in rings from a distance as he races past the level. The bubble shield now allows all three characters to swim in water without the risk of losing air, and you can even do a bounce jump which can help elevate you to higher places that you couldn't do by normal jumping. I love being able to play as three separate characters to get a different experience whenever I play from the beginning. It's a central part of what made games like Sonic 3 and Knuckles fun to play with. you could use the ability of a super speedy Hedgehog to speedrun the game, collect the Chaos Emeralds and Super Emeralds, unlock additional bosses and stages, and then try the whole game again with Knuckles with his level structured stages, his own final boss, and his more explorative treasure hunting abilities. They don't call him a treasure hunter for nothing, you know. Now, I know I haven't exactly touched upon the zones of these two games, but to be honest, a lot of the stages are more visually pleasing than they are trying to introduce level gimmicks. I mean, I guess you could say Angel Island Zone starts off as a nicely lush, vibrantly tropical island which then gets completely massacred by robots in a huge rainforest fire, but level gimmicky wise, there's nothing there. Hydro City Zone has its underwater sections with giant turbines, currents, and water slides, and the music is really kick-ass. Marble Garden Zone is hard, fuck this level. Okay, to be fair, it has music similar to the likes of Michael Jackson's song, but there's no way to gain a consistent amount of speed after working so hard to build it up. The place is filled to the brim with instant-death spring traps, spiky enemies, and those infuriating ball and chain thingies. It's just... I like the boss fight though. That had the one instance of Sonic and Tails working together, and that was pretty cool. Carnival Night Zone is more like a maze than it is a carnival. Although the music for it is good, the lighting and the colours are pretty dazzling. But this part here, this cylinder, where it took me and my brother fucking forever to figure out what to do because nothing like this has ever been done before and it's not explained how to get past it. Fuck this bit. Fuck it. Ice Cap Zone is awesome. It starts off with Sonic snowboarding down a huge mountain into a giant ice crystal cave, and it's one of the most simple, yet beautifully serene places to ever blaze through. Fun fact, the music for this song bears resemblance to Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal, but the original composition actually originated from a song called Hard Times by the now defunct The Jetsons. It's a really good song, and the band has some other good songs you should check out too. Finally, for the Sonic 3 aspect, we have Launch Base, a giant construction site with a near-complete, rebuilt Death Egg ready to launch. This place has alarms and probably the least amount of death traps of any final stage encounter ever. I mean, if you're playing the Sonic 3 and Knuckles version, this is just an out-of-place stage which, when completed, shows the Death Egg falling back onto Angel Island once you defeat the boss, so story-wise, this is just unnecessarily elongated. Before I cover the Sonic and Knuckles aspect of this game, I want to cover the special stages and the new Super Emeralds you can find. In every zone, there exists 3 to 4 giant golden rings that are craftily hidden in various places amongst the stages. And in each of these golden rings lies a 3D vector sprite looking special stage which requires the player to collect a number of blue orbs. These stages are more free roaming than Sonic 1 and 2. It's kind of like Sonic CD, except that you don't have any time limits, meaning you can explore the stage as much as you want. However, as the stages go on and the music starts to play faster and faster, your speed will increase dramatically, and in special stages that require you to be precise and accurate, you won't want to dawdle too much. For you see, if you run into any red orbs, you'll be booted out of the stage and will have to look for another giant ring. But to help alleviate the stress of not running into orbs, if you collect the blue orbs in a specific manner, like this, the red orbs will instead be converted into golden rings, which, if you know how to create a pattern out of these blue orbs, by collecting all of the rings, you can achieve a perfect score. Which means, whether you get a Chaos Emerald or get booted out, you can still grab a continue should you run out of lives. Now the special stages all vary in terms of what you have to do. Sometimes the layout of the map requires you to just follow the trail of orbs and carefully jump and rotate at specific points, or you might need to do a range of exploring to find mysteriously placed blue orbs. If you manage to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds, you of course get the Super Transformation once you collect 50 rings. But now with the expansion of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, after the Launch Base Zone boss, you'll come across Knuckles exiting a secret area, and inside that hidey hole, you'll find a multicolored ring which then transports you to the Emerald Altar, where, once again, you can attempt and test your gaming skills by grabbing the Super Emeralds and unlock a brand new form which will either give you a seizure, make you question your gender qualities, or grant you an army of death flickies to hurl at your command.
Open hell's gate. Come forth, my servants.
For the Sonic and Knuckles stages, we have the iconic Mushroom Hill Zone with its giant bouncy mushrooms, which will surely turn you into a fun guy. Giant pulley contraptions that, while slow, can help elevate you into hidden higher areas, and you also have these unique kind of slopes that change the angle of Sonic's position as you run down them. It's pretty cool to do, and even more cooler to use them at your advantage to find secret areas. You have Flying Battery Zone, the not Flying Fortress Zone from Sonic 2. Actually, to be fair, this place does have one of the more funnier bosses at the end of Act 1 with an animal capsule itself acting as the boss. That is pretty funny. It also has its abundance of fire spring traps, accelerator boosters, magnetic chains that are very creative for use in platforming, and by uncovering movable spikes, you can find giant golden rings in these very well hidden rooms. Next is the Sandopolis Zone, which appears to be inspired by the likes of ancient Egypt in terms of aesthetic designs. And I don't just mean it appears to be. The next act takes place in a giant pyramid full of ghosts and a fading light mechanic, meaning you gotta haul ass and keep those lights on if you don't want the ghosts to haunt you. Anyhow, the first zone has giant sand dunes with various slopes, and this abseiling technique that kinda looks like the pulley machine in Mushroom Hill allows you to elevate to lower parts of the stage. Admittedly slower, but it rewards you with more rings should you want to go after a high score. Lava Reef Zone is as dangerous as it sounds, and it sports its fair share of dangerous speed debuffers, such as the smoke machines and the robo fire snakes. When you reach the second act, the lava has spontaneously dried up, and we now have a stage very similar to the likes of Quartz Quadrant from Sonic CD, design-wise anyway. It still has its similar traps akin to the ones in the previous zones, but you also have these rotating ladder thingies where if you launch at the right time, you can elevate yourself to higher places. You know, I'm beginning to realize that a lot of the mechanics and gimmicks in these levels are about getting Sonic high. Is that because of the whole Knuckles and Bunt thing I did earlier? I didn't mean to make any foreshadowing indication or anything, that was just a joke. This is also where you'll find the buried Death Egg staring down at you once again, before you face the good doctor in a fight that requires you to do nothing but have him hurt himself with these giant spikes until his machine is destroyed. I find your lack of common sense disturbing, Eggman. Finally, we have the short but sweet looking Hidden Palace Zone, where you face off against Chuckles the Knuckles. Now, I mentioned in my top 9 rival battle videos that Knuckles was amongst one of my favourite bosses to fight against when it was just Sonic and Tails as they are against him, and I still hold true to that. You need to initiate all of the right moves and techniques against him in order to beat him, because using attacks like the spin dash won't always work, and he has his ways of clobbering you too if you get sloppy. I also like how there's a huge diagram depicting the upcoming boss facing off against Super Sonic. However, as soon as Knuckles regains his senses, he spots Dr. Robotnik making his way off with the Master Emerald, and since this mystical gem holds unlimited, untouched power known to man, Robotnik plans to harness its power for his Death Egg. With a new resolve, Knuckles decides it's time to set things right and send our heroes to the Sky Sanctuary, a level that, story-wise, has the most exhilarating moment in the Sonic 3 and Knuckles plot. The Death Egg rises from the clouds, Death Egg Robos assault the Sacred Garden as Sonic and Tails race over the crumbling set pieces and defeat the reoccurring bosses of old in a final 1-to-1 match with Mecha Sonic. Sky Sanctuary Zone on its own is disappointingly short, and it kind of rehashes a few level gimmicks like, surprise, surprise, elevating vines! Who could have seen that coming? But to be fair, I think this was the point in the game where the Hidden Palace Zone was supposed to be the Act 1 to Sky Sanctuary, so I guess they just figured, fuck it, we're so close to getting them to the Death Egg anyway, so, Speaking of which, we finally traverse the gigantic space station, as we race one more time through giant holographic tubes, conveyor belts, and the occasional gravity gimmick here and there. I hear a lot of people can't stand these gravity-based levels, and yeah, they can fuck you over a couple of times, but damn it, when they're used in the creative ways, I think it's kind of cool. Like this giant turbine that you have to open by pressing these buttons. I like it, I think it's really creative. But now we come to the big one. The giant behemoth to end all behemoths. Except not really, you wish and guess again. With the Master Emerald secured inside of his Kyodai Eggman Robo, Dr. Robotnik pulls out all the stops with giant laser beams, nostril flame attacks, and even his finger tries to squash our heroes, and when you knock away 2 of them, he decides to flip you off. What a dick. Sonic 3 and Knuckles achieves the best of what Sonic 2 and Sonic CD have to offer. The levels are jam-packed with many secrets, various routes, alternative music for each new zone, a unique and individual iconic set piece for each zone, and the bosses are amongst the toughest, yet most enjoyable I've ever battled against. Some of them have some pretty tricky patterns to them, like this baboon thingy on the flying battery zone and this spike lava machine and lava reef zone, but I got a lot of enjoyment out of the hovering drill machine and marble garden zone, the return of another Mecha Sonic in Sky Sanctuary, the gigantic Death Egg robot in the Death Egg zone, but nothing will hold a candle to my favourite 2D platforming final boss in all of history. By collecting all the emeralds and defeating Dr. Robotnik's Kyodai Eggman Robo, Dr. Robotnik seizes the Master Emerald and flies off into space with Supersonic chasing after him. This boss fight is intense. It starts off with you as the Golden Hedgehog, fighting your way through debris, collecting enough rings to stay alive, all while trying to use the missiles that Eggman is using against him. The music is intense, the boss is challenging, but not hard to defeat. He's pulling out all the stops with his missiles and rockets, and with determination, precision, and a tenacious attitude, Sonic manages to destroy the robot, reclaim the Master Emerald, and hand it back to Knuckles before departing. Or if you play Knuckles' story, which is a somewhat short continuation from Sonic's campaign, Knuckles faces off against the evil Mecha Sonic in his Master Emerald charged form, and manages to secure the Emerald back inside of the altar, allowing Angel Island to fly back into the sky once again. Another adventure is over, our heroes return home, and the game ends with the most heartwarming endings that I have ever laid my eyes upon. In case it wasn't obvious, I friggin' love this game. It's my favourite 2D platformer ever, and the only games to ever come close to it is Sonic CD and Super Mario World. It has a huge amount of replayability, it's highly accessible to all players, not just teenagers or adults, and it's a fantastic soundtrack, a great presentation, and fun gameplay. This game is fun to play no matter the age, and hey, if you struggle here and there, you don't need to worry. If you manage to beat the game without getting all the Chaos Emeralds, you can load your progress from any level and start from there. And hey, if you're up for even more accessibility, why not try out Knuckles in Sonic 2? I mean, unless you already have Sonic 2 on iOS, then you can play it there just fine.
And that's it for the classic Sonic reviews, guys. God damn, I am really tired from having to play all those Sonic 2D platforming games. I'm not tired just because I had to play them out of a burden or whatever. I enjoy playing all of those games again just to see how they evolved with the times and see how it really connected with trying to keep up with the consistency of the platforming, the replayability, and the elements that the Sonic the Hedgehog series was well notified for. But man, it took a lot out of me. I had to do a lot of recording. There was a lot of going back to, especially Sonic 3 and Knuckles, with having to play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, getting all the Chaos, the Super Emeralds. I'm pretty much a master of Sonic 3 and Knuckles at this point. And you know what? I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out whether Sonic CD or Sonic 3 and Knuckles was going to be my #1 favorite Sonic the Hedgehog game. But I decided that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles is definitely my favorite because I have a lot more experience with it. I've played it a lot of times, I know all of the secrets. In fact, no, scratch that. I'm still discovering secrets today. In fact, while I was recording for the gameplay for this upcoming review, I actually found a bunch of secrets that I didn't even know before. Like, if I went and checked these on the internet, I probably would have forgotten about them, and I probably never did check them on the internet. I just found them by happenstance. So that's something that I love about Sonic the Hedgehog 3. You're always discovering something new. I think that's what a lot of games should have. There should always be something new for old school players to come back to. Now, speaking of coming back, I have to let you guys know that I'm going to be on holiday for a while, and while I'm away, I'm going to start prepping for our next 2 story arcs for the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book Archie series. You see, a lot of people have been requesting me to take a look at the Sonic Quest saga, which looks into the Death Egg, which is a very vital element into the Archie Comics Sonic series. So I figured, sure, I'll honor their request, and we're going to take a look at that first, before we finish up everything with the Sonic the Hedgehog Endgame saga, which goes from issues 47 to issue 50. And then afterwards, we'll probably just finish off the Summer of Marathons with a review of Sonic Boom Fire and Ice for the 3DS. I know a lot of people haven't really talked about it. There's been a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people say it's okay, it's improved over Shattered Crystal. I've never really played Shattered Crystal before. So I'm going to be jumping into this game pretty much blind, not knowing what Shattered Crystal had beforehand, and I'll just be reviewing the game on its own. But until then, take care of yourselves, have a good evening, and as always, stay awesome, lovely viewers. I'll see you all next time.